In a small village surrounded by thick green jungle, where the sound of birds mixed with the rustling of leaves every morning, lived a humble farmer named Rafik with his wife Sarah and their little son Ion. They led a peaceful, simple life. Every morning, Rafik would take his bullock cart out to the fields while Sarah tended to the garden outside their small mud house, and little Ion played under the big banyan tree beside the hut. Life was calm, quiet, and filled with laughter, until that one dreadful evening when nature decided to test their courage in a way no one could ever imagine. It was late afternoon, the air heavy with the scent of rain. Dark clouds gathered over the forest, and the distant rumble of thunder echoed. Rafik was returning home with his cart loaded with harvested crops, while Sarah prepared dinner. Ion sat on the floor near the door, playing with a small wooden cart his father had made for him. The jungle seemed unusually silent, as if something dangerous was moving unseen through the shadows. Suddenly, the family's old dog started barking madly, his fur standing on end, eyes fixed toward the dense bushes near the house. Sarah looked out, worried, but saw nothing. She tried to calm the dog, but he refused to stop barking. Moments later, a faint rustle came from the thickets, slow at first, then louder, heavier. Sarah froze. Her heart pounded as two yellow eyes glowed faintly from the shadows. Before she could react, something long, thick, and black slid across the ground, a massive king cobra, larger than any she'd ever seen, coiling itself near the steps of the hut. It hissed, tongue flicking in and out, its hood wide open, displaying its deadly power. Ion, too young to understand, pointed and giggled, thinking it was some kind of game. "Ion, don't move," Sarah screamed, her voice trembling as she grabbed a wooden stick, but her hands shook so violently she could barely hold it. The cobra's gaze locked on the child, its body tensing to strike. Sarah's heart nearly stopped. She shouted again for Rafik, but he was still far off, his cart wheels creaking through muddy ground. In sheer desperation, Sarah threw the stick toward the snake, hoping to scare it, but it only angered the creature more. The cobra reared up higher, hissing louder, its scales glistening in the fading light. Then, as if time slowed, it lunged forward toward the baby. Sarah screamed in terror and ran forward to shield her son, ready to take the strike herself, when a thunderous roar shook the jungle. The sound came from somewhere deep within the trees, raw, powerful, commanding. The snake froze, mid-motion, its hood trembling slightly as it turned its head toward the forest. A second later, branches cracked, birds scattered into the sky, and from the shadows emerged a sight no one in the village had ever seen before, a lion. His mane shimmered in the dim light, golden even under the coming storm. His eyes burned like fire, and his roar echoed again, louder this time, sending a warning that made every living creature in the forest stop. The cobra turned its head toward the new threat, its body coiling tighter, ready to defend. Sarah, still frozen in fear, pulled her son into her arms and stepped back toward the hut wall. The lion took a few slow, powerful steps forward, his paws silent but his presence enormous. His muscles flexed under his golden coat as he lowered his head, glaring at the snake. What happened next would remain etched in the hearts of those who saw it. The cobra struck first, launching itself at the lion with blinding speed, but the lion was faster. With one swift motion, he leapt aside, his paw swinging down with tremendous force, pinning the snake's midsection to the ground. The cobra writhed and hissed violently, trying to escape, but the lion roared again, a deep, thunderous sound that shook the ground beneath them. The snake raised its head again to strike, but before it could, the lion lunged forward and grabbed the reptile behind its head with his powerful jaws. A short struggle followed, the sound of scales thrashing against fur, and then silence. The jungle seemed to hold its breath. The lion stood tall, the lifeless snake hanging from his mouth. Slowly, he dropped it onto the ground and looked toward Sarah and her child. For a moment, she couldn't move. Her heart raced, unsure whether this mighty beast would turn on them next. But the lion simply stared at them, calm, almost gentle. His chest heaved as he breathed, but his eyes softened as they met Sarah's. He took one step closer, then stopped, sniffing the air, as if assuring himself that the danger was gone. Ion peeked out from his mother's arms, whispering softly, "Ma, share." His small voice trembled but carried curiosity instead of fear. Sarah's tears fell freely now, a mix of relief and disbelief. Never in her life had she imagined that a lion, the king of predators, would be their protector. The lion turned his head, looked once more at the snake, then back at the family. Then, without a sound, he stepped back into the shadows of the forest. The moment he vanished into the trees, thunder cracked above, and rain began to pour. Rafik came running moments later, soaked, breathless, calling out for his wife and son. When he saw the huge dead cobra near their house, he froze. Sarah, still trembling, could barely speak as she pointed toward the forest. "A lion, he saved us." Rafik couldn't believe it. He had lived his entire life near the jungle, had seen lions only from afar, never this close, and never doing something like this. He wrapped his arms around his wife and son, still shaking as they watched the rain wash away the tracks left by the mighty beast. That night, no one in the family could sleep. Every creak of the wind reminded them of that roar. Sarah sat near Ion's bed, staring out the window toward the dark line of trees. Deep down, she felt gratitude, not just for surviving, but for witnessing something beyond understanding. Days passed, but the story spread quickly. Villagers whispered in awe about the lion who had appeared like a guardian from the wild. Some said it was a miracle, others said the animal must have remembered some old kindness. But for Sarah and Rafik, it was more than a tale, it was life itself. A few days later, Rafik decided to visit the forest edge, carrying a small bundle of food as a silent offering of thanks. As he placed it near the same banyan tree, he noticed something: lion footprints, fresh, leading just beyond the clearing. He smiled faintly and whispered, "Thank you." From then on, the lion was never seen again near the village, but every now and then, at dusk, a faint roar could be heard in the distance, a sound that no longer brought fear, but comfort. Ion grew older hearing that story from his parents, of how the king of the jungle had saved them from certain death. And even as he became a man, he would often look toward that same jungle, remembering the eyes that once glowed with strength and mercy. Some said the lion guarded that part of the forest for years, and no dangerous creature ever came close again. The villagers began calling him Rakshak, the protector. The jungle and the village learned to coexist again, bound by a story that blurred the lines between beast and man. And though time moved on, one truth remained eternal: courage and kindness can come from the most unexpected places, even from the wildest hearts.